So, welcome back. After the break, we now have planned the second panel of the conference Mothers and Fathers Welcome, and this is on the support with regards to the return of parents to work. So I would like to ask Jana Chodorová, supervisor accountant for Czech Republic and Slovakia from Phyllis Morik, to come to the floor to share her experience from Phyllis Morris. Welcome. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is first time for me to talk in front of so many people on my personal experience, but I hope that sharing that experience would be inspiring for you. So, what responsible companies do for mothers? Thank you for coming up with this topic. I took maternal leave for the first time 10 years ago, and for the second time 5 years ago. I stayed at home for 18 months in average, and it was on my request. I wanted to return back to work, to the same job. At that time, part-time jobs were not common, but I had the opportunity. It was made possible for me to work part-time by the company, and mostly the company kept in touch with parents, inviting them to social events and so on. Last year, I was contacted by the company asking me to set up Employee Resource Group, ERG. These are employee groups set up globally under Philip Morris. It forms part of a global strategy of Philip Morris. So it's an employee group sharing a certain activity or sharing a certain pattern. And there is always discussion between this platform and the management. And I liked this offer because I thought that I could do something for the company and for the employees. I represent parental ERG and an ERG for carers. So the demographic curve is changing. So we are not discussing only women returning to their job from their parental leave, but we are going to allow parents or women care for their parents, or elderly people. We have 110 members, and we have a leading 10-member team. And before planning and organizing an activity, we always distribute a questionnaire, and we distribute it among all the parents, even those not working in the company right now, and we ask them about their suggestions or ideas with regards to the activity we should plan. So, with regards to corporate companies, I believe that Philip Morris is a responsible company because they promote ERGs. And once you do that, you have to be able to listen to your employees. And a growing number of jobs in part-time schemes is very beneficial. And the company needs to promote managers, needs to allow them to provide part-time jobs, because this allows mothers and parents in general return to work. And responsible companies are recognized also by another indicator. 3 years ago, we introduced an 8-week compensation for the so-called secondary parent. You have to choose whether you are going to be a primary or secondary parent. And I believe that the company is really trying to do something for mothers and allow fathers to share the parental responsibility and childcare. Thank you very much, Jana Chodorova from Philip Morris. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. And the second panel is called Changes in the Support of Parents at Work, Practice of Responsible Companies and the public sector, because the public sector is one of the largest employers in the Czech Republic. So Michala Opletová, Member of Parliament of the Czech Republic, Šárka Jelínková, Deputy of the Minister of Labour and Social Affairs, Petra Ondrušová, Chief Sustainability Officer from Česká spořitelna, Adriana De Martini, Head of HR Deutsche Börse. So welcome. Let's start. So first I will give the floor to Michala Opletová. What prevents parents from returning to work earlier? And what do you think about shortening or reducing the parental leave in the Czech Republic? Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I have participated many times in this conference. So one of the main obstacles for mothers is the insufficient number of places in childcare facilities. This topic was mentioned in previous discussions and in previous panels, so I just have to repeat. And I'm happy to see and hear so many discussions about the future. But isn't it too late? Yes, because the birth rate is going down. And last year I already said that it's good to see initiatives in the private sector, but there are not many initiatives in the public sector. I used to be a mayor for many years, and I am quite disappointed to see that the worst situation is in the public sector. So it is late, but still it's positive that there are changes, that the Ministry of Education started to analyze data and come up with results proving that postponement in the start of school attendance is negative, that it blocks money due to later payments of parental leave. Šárka Jelínková from the Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs. So some controversial options and suggestions and amendments are on the table. The changes to parental leave are one of them. In the morning we talked about the Swedish model where fathers participate in higher numbers. So what can the ministry do, or what is the ministry doing for improving the involvement of fathers? Thank you. And I am sorry for hearing that you do not appreciate what the government has been doing or what the ministry has been doing, because I believe that the ministry has been trying to increase the participation of fathers and making the labor market more flexible. We have achieved certain results and we have been working on more issues. So just to mention few initiatives. With regards to the Ministry of Education, we cooperate with them and we do analyze data because the government in the past did not work with data. So I am puzzled how they managed to come up with a policy. So with regards to preschool care, what we can do as a ministry is to increase the number of children's groups. So this is available even for children who are 1 year old. And the minister has decided that 7 billion would be allocated to the creation of new children groups, and regardless of the sector. So it can be established in the public sector, within NGOs, and so on. And we have improved the flexibility within the labor code. There are options for part-time jobs for parents, and I will provide a potpourri of all options, and you can stop me once I speak for too long. We can talk about flexibility later on, but I believe that part-time jobs are available for parents. Parental benefits have been cut from 4 years to 3 years, but the amount is the same. And we are trying to motivate mothers to return to work earlier, because for 2 years, because now it's just 6 months, but the employer should reserve the job for 2 years and not for 6 months or only. So this is a motivation for mothers to return to work and to the same post.
Well, I'm sure we'll get back to it, I'm sure. And now I will ask Petra Ondrushova of Česká spořitelna, what is your practice, your experience, and how about the children's group in Česká spořitelna, what do you offer? Good morning to everyone. Thank you for the question. I must say that whatever we start discussing, whether it is maternal leave, when to come back from parental leave, I think that it's definitely the choice of the individual. But Česká spořitelna has got 10 million employees, and 10% of parents are on maternal or parental leave constantly. So it's a huge pool of talent that we have to take care of. And we want to take care of to make sure we are sustainable for the future. And as an employer, we contribute to parents for childcare up to the age of 5 years. This is until there is the last year of preschool, which is compulsory for all children. We also opened a children's group for Česká spořitelna, but not in Prague, although we have 3,500 people in the headquarters in Prague. We opened this children's group in Pardubice because we know that there's a huge number of employers, so the labor market is very competitive there. So that's why we chose this location, and we conducted a survey among our employees, so we had the data. And I don't want to say that this is something normal. It's not, because I returned to work after my first daughter was 9 months and the other one was 1.5 years. And for many people judged me that I prefer career over my children. But I think that the topic of returning to work, that the perception has changed after 1.5 years, 18 months of a child. I think it's more common now for women, for mothers, to get back to work. And we would like to help our colleagues, female and male, to get back to work. And that's why we established the children's group, to give them the opportunity to return to work earlier. We have really positive feedback, and in year's time we're moving our headquarters to a new campus in Smíchov, and we've already included a kindergarten for 90 children in the project. And flexible working hours, flexible employment, all kinds of flexibility. This is a really important topic that needs to be discussed. And we're not speaking about moms only, but of dads as well. And very much this requires a dialogue. It requires willingness of managers, of the company's managers, to work with this group of employees. And there are some other topics that haven't been mentioned yet. Getting back to the length of the parental leave. If the mother stays on the parental leave for a longer period of time, isolated at home, then of course there are some social aspects getting to it, because there may be some problems arising out of this, actually. And now the experience of Deutsche Börse, Adriana De Martini. Thank you for your invitation. I have to say that I'm speaking here on behalf of 3 of my colleagues who are in charge of parental leave and support of parents in our company, but they are more introverted than me, so that's why I'm here. Today, and we are one of those companies that can actually afford to provide the support. We have several programs. We've already heard about flexibility today, because if you have 100 people, there will be 100 different needs. And that's why we created our group, to be able to speak to individual moms. And we actually start talking to the moms or to our employees who are to become moms, because it's actually a moment when they start having a lot of questions concerning employment law, the process of employment, and we actually want moms to stay at home, definitely for the first 6 months. And actually we compensate the salary. So we top up the salary 100% to moms for the first 6 months. We have 10 weeks fully compensated for fathers as well, so they can afford to stay home for 10 weeks. But not all companies can afford this, of course. So during the time of the maternal leave, there's no shortening of their compensation. When the maternal leave turns or transforms into parental after 6 months, then of course we start discussing which of the moms would like to come back earlier, which of them want to stay at home for longer. And of course then we offer shorter or more flexible employment, part-time, and it's really there's really a lot of effort required from the manager of the department, because there is a need for the manager to really redistribute the work within the department to make sure that the department works all right without any problems, although one of the employees may be currently on a maternal or parental leave. So thank you very much for this excellent example. And we know that not all companies can afford this system, this kind of support. And let me ask the first question now. It's a question for Madam Opletová, Madam Jelínkova. I wonder about the flexibility. You mentioned the part-time employment, and the expectation was that women would be more interested in them. But we see that it's not really so much beneficial. I don't know if it's okay for the employers, but for ladies, for women, this may not be so beneficial financially. They may not be compensated as much as they would expect. So how do you approach this? Well, I look at it from the perspective of public administration authorities, because this is where my experience lies. And we really have to start working with the future parents from the moment they actually join the employment. And I'm always thinking, okay, so there's someone who will perhaps want to start a family eventually. So then there may be some planning to find a replacement, and then the mom never visits the office or the workplace, and this is not good. So I actually like to start working with the employees who might potentially want to start a family in the future from the start of their employment, so that they know how to prepare for this and how to plan their life, because they have to think about their financial security and all the other aspects. And actually young parents think about this a lot. So you really need to work with the people. This is really the main task, and you have to make it clear that the opportunities are there or should be there, and that it's something normal. And as a woman, I am in the parliament. I am a member of the committee for family and economy. And I try to set an example because I'm a mum myself. And when I started as an MP, my son was 2 months old. So this was really very difficult for me. So I actually want to set an example that you can do it. But when I get back home to my village, it's like 100 kilometers away from Prague, and I see that the climate in there is completely different. I can see that for many people, I'm not a good mother, and people do not really see this as a positive thing. And some mums come to ask me secretly, how can you manage? Do you cope? I would also like to get back to work, but I cannot really speak about it in here. So I think the discussion is needed. And I like to see how this discussion is progressing in the parliament, in the society. And of course, the state has to work with data. It has to allocate money to children's groups. That's excellent, although we see that the progress is not as good as anticipated. But it's really important to say, you can do it. It's normal to get back to work. I do not know what else we could do. And I would like to ask Deputy Minister Madam Jelinkova. So I have a question about the flexicurity. And one more question. If is the increase of the parental allowance not a discouraging factor, actually, because the mothers may choose to stay home longer? Well, okay, so I will get back to the first part of the question, the flexicurity and the part-time jobs that may entail the risk of lower compensation for this type of employment. And we see that in the past, up to the age of 3 years of a child, almost all the mothers used to be at home with the children, and then from 3 years onwards, there was almost 100% employment. But we see that we saw that initially there was an effort to offer the part-time jobs, and this was some reaction to what we see in other countries where there are different schemes. And another area that needs to be supported is working from home, the so-called home office, and we have somehow designed a framework for this, for the employers to find it easier to use this option. And of course, it's also up to the employers how they treat, how they approach their employees. And at the Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs, we also try to work with our employees, mostly women, mums, and we know that our employees on maternal leave, they like to participate in training. It's usually e-learning because it's easier for them. So they actually are interested in keeping in touch with the company. So I think it's really important to maintain the discussion in the society. And I had my child 16 years ago, and I was self-employed. So after my child turned 6 months, I actually started working. I did not stay home only. I really felt like I needed to stay in touch with what was going on in or at my work. And I think this is something we should support if someone wishes to do so. And in terms of increasing the parental allowance, of course, this was a political decision to a certain degree as well. And of course, you discuss this from a different perspective when you're a journalist or when you're a social scientist, and this is needed. And then there's a demand on the side of the public. And if some people face economic uncertainty, they see that the cost costs are increasing, and then a part of the society financial support by the state is increased, then you cannot leave a different group out completely. So this is just to explain the context and like to point this out as a positive thing, and I think it's important to make it possible for parents to get back to work earlier, because the children will cope for sure. I wonder if it might help that compulsory parental leave by mothers and fathers would help. Could this actually support the return of the women to the labor market? Because this would also somehow equalize a compensation. Well, I do not think that it should be compulsory, really. This is not the way to go. I think this really needs to be voluntary, and it's really necessary to educate people. But as I say, this is based on what I see in my environment. It's really about the setup of the society. We would probably have to look for a needle in a haystack to find a politician who would dare to suggest this. And I think the politician would not be successful suggesting this. Of course, we all want fathers to get more involved, but I don't think it would be an ideal way to make this an obligatory thing. But if I look at what's happening around me, I can see that many fathers actually get more engaged nowadays. And I live in a small town in Moravia, and I see that more fathers actually are more active in the family. Some of them stayed on a parental leave because their wife was earning more money, and there was no negative social feedback. But I must admit that it's kind of slow. It's just step by step. And I would like to ask the ladies representing the corporate sector, because this is something that may be more common in the large companies. Well, I will not comment on the social aspect. We heard the presentation of the Swedish model in the morning. What I think we have to keep saying is that the care should not really rely on one parent only. Parents need to share the responsibility. We have many parents on maternal leave in our company now, and we only have like 2 dads. And last year it was just 1 dad, but this year there are more dads who are on parental leave. But the increase is not very large. But where I can see a difference is that our colleagues are not shy anymore to ask for part-time, for less hours of employment, to be able to spend time with their family. And if you speak about part-time, maybe 80% people think that this is just 50% of employment, of regular employment. But we have 10% of our employees on part-time in Česká spořitelna all over the country. And the most common type is 80% of the regular or standard full-time. So it's like 2 hours. And it gives you enough time to do all the work that you need to do. And of course, you need to make sure that you do not want the people to work 100% as a full-time employee when their employment arrangement is shorter. And I have many friends who are on part-time, and I know that they are not shy to say, I have to leave now at 3:30 to pick up my child from the kindergarten, and I will finish the work in the evening when the child is in bed. And this is possible. And sometimes you have to handle the expectations of the managers in the company, because we know that everything is focused on performance. And then when you suggest that a manager should work part-time, it may be a problem. Of course, I would definitely not make the father's participation in the parental leave mandatory. And if I can share our best practice, we see more and more women managers to support other employees, other mums. And I've been working in HR for 15 years, and I can also see an increasing number of fathers to take parental leave. And of course, if a man knows that he's taking the child to see a doctor and he will be the only man, it may not feel so comfortable. But then if they know that there are more dads on parental leave and there are more dads in the doctor's office, they will feel more comfortable.
Děkuju. Já jsem teda taky ze soukromého.
I also work in the private sector in a big company. And last year we introduced 12 weeks fully covered for fathers, and we have this system, and it is very popular among fathers, and they even register it in the internal system. They announce that they are starting this 12-week leave. So it is about changing the culture and communicating this. So this could be emulated in the public sector. Do you have any plans in the public sector? Because, sharing best practices from the private sector would be useful for you. My partner is on the leave, and 3 months ago I returned to work after staying for 1 year with my second child. So now it's my partner taking care of the children, and it is really great. We have had a great experience with that, so I can only recommend. Thank you very much for the examples, for sharing. On behalf of the ministry, I can only say that fathers have 2 days off before the child reaches 6 months. So this is a top-up apart from the parental leave available. Of course, it's not 12 weeks. And the topic of non-transferable parental leave, this is really difficult to push through in politic terms, because the Czech Republic believes that we are fully compatible with the relevant directive, and this would require more time. I don't know whether, it's a good idea to open it now when we don't have too much time to discuss it, because it's related to other issues. And I'm happy that the previous speaker, Mrs. Chodorova, mentioned the topic of caring for our parents, for elderly, for the elderly. So the employers should be aware of that. We are talking about the flexibility of the labor code with employers, and we have to discuss with them also this issue, the care for the elderly, but this should be again shared obligation for both genders and for everyone. So this is another topic that's really needs a discussion. Okay, but let's return back to the topic of childcare, because this would require more time. So going back to the involvement of men and relevant allowances. Well, in the public sector, I believe that no schemes are available. You have 2 days at the ministry, but at other levels of the public sector, there is no discussion. This is not debated at all. And I'm really trying to change this, because public sector is a huge employer. So all the officers, all the authorities and all the bodies should really pay attention to this issue, and they should learn from the private sector. And I organize a number of seminars with the Association of Municipalities and Towns and local governments, and together we organize seminars. They represent almost 8 million people. All towns and municipalities are under their umbrella, so this is a good platform to organize similar workshops and change attitudes. Yes, I asked about the involvement of municipalities and towns and how to pay for all of this. Yes, but really, with regards to money, it's always a very difficult question. And there are differences, there are gender pay gaps. But we can see that the private sector has managed to do something. And my partner is a hero in our town. And of course, some people believe that he is, that he is a poor guy because he has to take care of the children. But others believe that he is a hero, and I do praise him for doing that. And I believe that he is a role model for others, and men really can take care of children very well. And I do spend a lot of time far from the family. However, this is very beneficial for the family. This is very beneficial for the children, because they have different role models. They can emulate their fathers. I have a son, and for my son, it's an inspiration. And it's also an inspiration for my partner's friends. They have changed their attitudes, and he is a role model to emulate. Thank you. Another question? Well, I also work in the private sector. In our company, we have 20 weeks of paid parental leave for the secondary carer. And I believe that we have managed to do a lot for the parents. We provide a benefit when they decide to return earlier to work, 12,000 at full time scheme. We organize educational schemes. And my question is the following. Mostly, it seems that mothers that stay at home with children are quite passive, that they are waiting for us to do something and to take the initiative. So my question is whether you have the same experience, whether it's really this passivity, and what did you do about it? How did you manage to make your employees more active in this respect? Well, from Phyllis Morris, we heard about employee resource groups, and we wanted to establish the same model in our company. And we do have these groups for other types of groups of students and LGBT groups, but for mothers it did not really work. We had a certain initiative, but mothers really were not so willing to take it on. They were quite happy to be detached for a certain time, but we do provide them with a contact day. So when they feel like it, they can be in touch with us. So you are right, we are more active than they are. It seems that they are happy to stay home with their children. Petra Ondrušová. Well, it's difficult to generalize. We always try to focus on communication, and we ask or encourage the women to be active. So from the very beginning, from the very start, when they announce or when they even tell us that they plan to have children, we really want to communicate with them and have a dialogue with them from the very start. To start the dialogue in time is crucial. And many of them really just don't know that there is a chance for them to be more active and return sooner, that this is possible. They are not aware of the options. So this is really about communication. We have about 10,000 employees in different regions. So there is a different setup in those regions. So we have to just provide them with examples, with best practice. And we do have examples from all levels of the hierarchy. And then we really have to go back and verify whether they already feel like returning or not. Some women tell us that they want to spend 3 years at home, and they stay there for 3 years, but it can change. And after a communication campaign, 20% of women returned earlier. So I believe that we have managed to change the situation quite significantly. And in our team, in my team, I have 3 persons on a part-time scheme. One of them is a mother that returned after 5 years. She works on 0.3. On 30%. Then I have a colleague, a female colleague, she's a painter, and then there is a male colleague, a father, working at 70%. So the discussion, the communication is very important. Without this, it's not possible to change attitudes. Well, thank you very much for these positive words. So thank you very much for participating in this panel. Michaela Opeltová, the Member of Parliament, Šárka Jelínková, the Vice Minister from the Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs, Petra Ondrušová, Chief Sustainability Officer from Česká spořitelna, and Adriana De Martini, Head of HR Deutsche Börse. Thank you very much for coming, and I would pass the floor to Pavel Stern, Director of Business for Society.
Well, I would also like to ask Kamila Čubanová to join me here on this stage so that we're gender balanced in here. And we will conclude by a short sum up and invitation to the next events. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you to our partners, Česká spořitelna, Deutsche Börse. Thank you to all the panelists who have been with us today. We appreciate this a lot because we know that your schedules are very busy. And this has been a really inspiring morning for me. I think that Petra has actually summarized this very nicely. It's important to speak about this, to try to look for solutions that will be suitable for everyone. And in cooperation with the public sector, with the private sector, we should try to find something that will work for the parents, because each family is different. They have different priorities. They are in a different phase of their life. So there should not be just one template for everyone. There should be options, and companies have already started implementing something. We see more progress in the private sector than in the public sector, but also we see that public sector has started discussing these things. So together we will hopefully be able to move these things forward. So thank you very much. Thank you. I can only confirm thank you to our partners of this year's conference, Česká spořitelna, Deutsche Börse, and the Swedish Embassy. And it has already been said that we wanted to open new topics this morning. I think we've succeeded, and I'm sure we will continue this discussion, because the topic of parenthood, of shortening the parental leave, is something that needs to be discussed, and also the topic of sharing the parental leave between mothers and fathers. And we're really happy to have Madam Jelinkova and Member of the Parliament Opeltova to be our regular guests. And thank you for being engaged in the dialogue. Thank you for being here with us, although your perspective may be slightly different. But thank you for participating in this dialogue, because it's very important to have this dialogue between private and public sector, to share the information, to share good practice. And we know that private companies really have a lot of good practice to share, something that could be also implemented within the public administration, something that could reflect in the legislation and the regulations. So thank you very much. We're looking forward to our next discussions. Just a brief note on the parents, because the representatives of the companies have mentioned that you can actually engage fathers more if you set up the conditions. And this should actually be known as one of the social values, or values of the society, that fatherhood is something important. And when a father stays at home with a child, that it's actually does not mean that it's the household ruled by a woman. The men who actually decide to spend some time on the parental leave, they should be appreciated as well. This should be part of the public discussion. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you to Confess for the sound, to Leontinka for the video, and to the interpreters. And also thank you to Camilla, who really did a great job to prepare this conference, and to Julia for hosting this morning. And before we finish, and before we leave, could you please join us here in front of the room for a family photo? So thank you very much for coming. We're looking forward to seeing you at our next events. The closest one is the 7th of June. It's the European Diversity Day. So you can join us at the conference, although you're not members of the Diversity Charter. And if you're interested in volunteering, if your company participates in volunteering, just a reminder, the 14th of June, the next edition of the Volunteering Day, Give and Gain Day. You will see all the information on our website. If you want to participate, you'll be more than welcome. Thank you. Just very briefly, thank you very much to Česká spořitelna, Deutsche Börse, the Swedish Embassy for making this conference possible. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and good luck not only to mums and dads, but to everyone. And really, I have to extend thanks to Business for Society. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to meet at events like this, for organizing these events. Enjoy the rest of the day.